Hey guys, Jack Wilkie here with another book review. This time I want to look at Joe Rigney's The Sin of Empathy, available at Amazon and Canon Press. Give you the whole picture of it there, a little cloud holding the bomb, a brilliant cover there for the kind of things it talks about. I believe, since I got a hold of this copy, they have changed the name to Leadership and the Sin of Empathy, probably to pair it with this other book, Leadership and Emotional Sabotage, also done by Rigney, also from Canon, and available at Amazon. They sell them as a 2-pack, and I'm telling you right now, number one, you don't have to be a leader to glean from them, to find useful things from them. Number two, if you are a leader, you need to read both of these books. They are great insight into the dynamics of leadership and things that derail leadership, as the title says on the other one, Emotional Sabotage. This one is empathy and the idea of allowing yourself to be steered by feelings and all the things we're going to talk about here in this book review. But if you can't tell off the top, I guess I'm kind of giving it away at the top of this review. This is a really good book, The Sin of Empathy. Leadership and the Sin of Empathy, I guess, is what it's supposed to be called now. Very good book. Highly recommend. I'll talk about that and the rating a little bit more at the end. But it's a book for our time. However, as I titled this video, as is probably the number one question Rigney has gotten, the most pushback he's gotten, he addresses it in the book. It's addressed a little bit in the foreword. It's addressed a couple times within the two covers of this book. Is empathy a sin? And as he goes on to explain, he's not really worried about the technical definition of empathy so much as how people use it. As when people get into the idea of empathy and what empathy, how it gets weaponized, he sometimes more specifically refers to the problem here. The sinful empathy is untethered empathy that doesn't care about truth but cares about feelings over truth and that kind of thing. And so I know a lot of people are going to say, empathy is a sin. No, empathy is great. Well, again, pick up the book because he's going to explain exactly what he means by that title, The Sin of Empathy. You could kind of get into a spin-off discussion of, is it okay to be provocative with your titles? Is it okay to overstate things a little bit? But nobody had a problem when 10, 15 years ago, a lot of people started talking about the idolatry of the family, the idolatry or the idol of marriage. Well, is marriage an idol? Is the family an idol? Well, it can be. Well, is empathy a sin? Well, it can be. And so that's kind of the logic behind it. And again, he gives a good explanation as one of the appendices of the book. So be sure to check that out. But what I'm going to do is, like I did last time with the Charlie Kirk one, I'm going to give you a few quotes to go off of that I found to be particularly interesting and gives an idea of the book and why I think this one's so valuable and why I'm going to recommend it. And, I meant to say this at the top. I'm going to give a quick plug for my upcoming baptism debate, and if you're watching this after the baptism debate, you can go back and watch it here on YouTube as well, but I'll be debating Jeremiah Nortier on Is Water Baptism Essential for Salvation? So check that out. You got all the information right there. There's a little bit of a plug out of place here in the video, and I'll go ahead and get onto those quotes I wanted to look at in the book. He does a really good job of talking about empathy, compassion, the etymology of these words, that empathy is a newer one, and getting at why he thinks compassion and sympathy are better words, especially in the vernacular that we have today. And this is really a useful thing. This quote here gives the idea: apathy stands on the shore but refuses to connect with the sufferer. Empathy dives in to connect with the sufferer but loses touch with the shore. The virtue of compassion or sympathy insists on being tethered to both. And so you can kind of get the idea there of, if you're trying to help somebody, you do actually have to help them, but it's not actually helping them to jump into their situation. And one of the valuable things about this book is he sources it from the ideas from a lot of the discussions that are going on. He references Brené Brown, who has talked about empathy, has helped popularize some of these ideas. Has YouTube videos she does of tens of millions of views talking about these kinds of things and breaking down what she gets right and what's wrong. He also talks about other analysis like Aaron Wren's 3 worlds model and how that comes into play with this, and how Christians have kind of allowed ourselves to be steered by these things in catering to the world and things like that. If you know Rigney, you know he's a big C.S. Lewis guy, and so he sources a lot from Lewis as well. Again, just a lot. It's not just one guy spouting his opinion. It's well researched, well sourced of bringing the different sides of this conversation to say, how did we get here? And so he establishes this idea and kind of references Brown about kind of jumping in the pit with people or jumping in to help them out. And feeling with them and feeling in their feelings and those kinds of the differences in those terms. But this is a really important thing that, hey, we don't need to just jump in and validate every feeling. You got to keep a foot grounded on truth and also put an arm around the person. And so a great quote that he had is on that part as well. Compassion, again, as he's making that differentiation between empathy and compassion, compassion is willing to be called heartless in its pursuit of the true and lasting good of the afflicted. This is one of the really big differences and one of the important points to take away. And again, I'm just giving you a few quotes to go on. You're not going to have it all just from reading this. It's a pretty short read, as you can see. Go ahead and pick it up because I'm just connecting some of the dots. He really gets into, as things I've personally witnessed and dealt with in ministry, you look like the bad guy. You look like the mean guy, that people are going to call you things. They're going to sling accusations and things like that if you're grounded in truth and saying, no, this is the right thing to do. And so compassion is okay with that as long as we're doing what's best for the person. Doesn't really care about the accusations. Empathy, the sin of empathy, untethered empathy, or whatever you want to call it, it goes very much to caring what people think and being steered by those feelings. Another quote in here, Christians came to implicitly adopt the subjective logic of victimhood. I'm hurt, therefore you sinned, and thereby succumb to the tyranny of the sensitive. This is another thing, man. Why I recommend this so highly is I have seen all of the things he talks about in this book in my time in ministry. The sensitive, the squeaky wheel, the person who throws the biggest fit, the person who claims that they're as you guys all know, you claim I'm offended, you win. And so Christians wanting to be loving, wanting to be empathetic, wanting to show they cared about people, gave into this kind of stuff. And it's once that ball gets rolling, it's very hard to stop. As he says, it becomes the tyranny of the sensitive. Then it always becomes the first person to get their feelings hurt, the first person to yelp loudest gets their way. And the people in the middle who should know better go, oh, wow, you're being really mean to that person. You need to back off, even if you're standing on the truth. And so, again, another very valid point on this sin of empathy. But the most important thing is that it looks nice. It looks like doing the right thing. And he gives examples such as the transgenderism thing. But there's that's a really obvious one, as he talks about. And as I'm sure you've seen, there are way more insidious ones where people just think you're doing the right thing. You're caring about everybody. You're making sure everybody's comfortable, and you're destroying people. You're letting people wreck the church. You're letting bad things happen. If I could get every eldership in America, in the world, honestly, to read this book and Leadership and Emotional Sabotage, I think you could put a stop to a lot of bad ideas like this tyranny of the sensitive that he talks about here. And so, again, another valuable chapter for that. Under the progressive gaze, soft-hearted, this is a quote from a few pages later, so in the same section. Under the progressive gaze, soft-hearted, reasonable Christians replace peacemaking with peace-mongering. That idea of the progressive gaze is another one that's really important. How many Christians live thinking, as he describes it, a little progressive on your shoulder, that every decision you make is, would a New York liberal be upset if I held this view? And then they start watering down their views and not saying really what they believe because that little liberal progressive might do it. And so that's why you see things. I've been so critical. If you listen to Think Deeper, I've brought this up before, where the Christian Chronicle, when abortion Roe v. Wade was overturned, they did a roundtable of all of their editors, and all of them did some hand-wringing and expressed deep concern about those who would be hurt by this ruling. Why? Because of the progressive gaze. Because they're very worried that if they come out and be like, this is great, I've been praying for this, and this is what we needed to have happen in our country, the progressives would get mad at them, and we would lose our witness, and we would drive people away, and all those phrases that we use, that progressive gaze. And why do we care about that? Well, because we want to be empathetic to the outsider. And so we give up truth. Again, in caring for feelings, we give up truth. That progressive gaze concept, that the chapter on that and the chapter on feminism are two that, again, everybody needs to read. Later on, when he talks about feminism, if you successfully and effectively resist the cancer of feminism, you will be called an abuser or an abuse enabler. I wrote a while back that an article, you can find it on my site, jackwilkie.com, The Elephant in the Church, I said a lot of churches, if not most, and this is an open secret, just like the elephant in the room, are steered by a woman or a group of women, whether it's the elders' wives or older women or whoever it may be, that everyone knows if they get mad about something, if they start kind of causing a fuss, that's how the decision's going to get made. Everyone's going to go, oh, we got to put that together. Well, if you're the guy who stands up and says, hey, ladies, you can't act like this, how's that going to go? He's the guy that's picking on women. He's the guy, the men in the church who won't stand up and do the right thing will immediately find a backbone, the white knight, which he also talks about in this book. All of a sudden, they're going to ride to their wives' defense and push this guy out for being mean to women. I've seen it happen. I've been in the front row seats where that has happened, where somebody stood up to the controlling women's group of the church, and it does not go well. And this is, again, an open secret in Christianity. And again, why? Empathy, because we've got to feel bad for these women. So another valuable concept in the book here. And then towards the end, he talks about compassion, and it's not one of those books where it's like all of this is bad, leaving you to wonder what's good. He comes back around to here's what compassion looks like. Here's what weeping with those who weep and rejoicing with those who rejoice looks like. Here's what caring about feelings without abandoning truth looks like. And it is having that sober-mindedness, so you're seeing the truth and not just being swayed by feelings and giving in to everything you hear. And so, again, a number of good quotes. You can quibble about the title. As I said, I'm not really bothered by the provocative nature of the title. That's just something in publishing. That's how you get eyes on the book. And I'm not even in a cynical way, because there is a sense in which empathy can be a sin. And so using that might be a nitpick somebody might have with the book. It's, as I said, a pretty short read, which I think I would have read another 100 pages on it, because it's a very valuable book. On the other hand, if you're going to get elders to read it, if you're going to get people to read, sometimes just handing them something that is this thin, and honestly, when you put the two of them together, it's not going to take you that long. The two of them make up a couple 100 pages. That makes it way more digestible, makes it way more likely that people are going to read it. And so, again, that's not even really a nitpick. That's just a choice they made that I can understand. To go along with that, he cites a number of works. C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce, which, of course, you should read. Just about everything Lewis put out. But also Edwin Friedman's The Failure of Nerve was one of the first ones to kind of go after empathy was Friedman. I read that book as well. Really, really good. That one is a longer book. That one is heavier. This one very digestible. Not that it's weak, but it's something you can get through in a couple of days, and short chapter list, and you can work through it pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, I know in a book review you're supposed to be critical. You're supposed to find things, say I push back on this or not that or the other thing. I'm a Rigney guy. I think he does a really good job, and I think this book especially is needed. It's one of those, to quote Lewis myself, as I often like to do with this one, the fire department that he cites, that they're going around with fire extinguishers in a flood, right? Trying to put out a fire where there's not a fire. They've got the wrong tool for the job. There's so much about empathy. There's so much about church hurt. There's so much about leadership abuse and things like that. And it's like, yeah, that does happen, but the issue way more often is people being soft and letting themselves get steered by those who throw a fit, by those who are insubordinate, by those who won't stand up and do the right thing, and letting the people who are in the right get trampled just so we don't hurt the feelings of those who will take advantage of everybody. And so The Sin of Empathy, or Leadership in the Sin of Empathy by Joe Rigney, highly recommend, again, for anybody, but especially for church leaders. And again, pick up the 2-pack. Pick up Leadership and Emotional Sabotage. I read that one way too long ago to review it now. I should probably read it again and do a review on it sometime, although it would just be another, hey, this is really good work by Rigney, go ahead and pick it up. But yeah, highly recommend it. We need to have these kinds of conversations, because if I've said it once, I've said it 10 times already. Everything he describes in this book are things I have sat in church leadership meetings and watched go down. I've watched a church split over the sin of empathy. Of the kinds of things he details in this book, these things happen, and this is something we really need to be aware of and understand how to diffuse it, understand what real compassion looks like, understand how to have a backbone while still caring for people, truthful and loving, not picking one or the other. So yeah, go ahead and pick up Leadership and the Sin of Empathy by Joe Rigney. I'll put the link in the description here if you want to pick up a copy. And yeah, if you have a suggestion, I'm about to embark on a deep study after my debate that I just mentioned a little bit ago. I'll show you that one more time with Jeremiah. After that debate, I'm going on a deep dive study about men, women, gender roles, marriage roles, and kind of the state of that in evangelicalism. Here's just one of the books I'm looking at for that is Tim Keller's The Meaning of Marriage. Tim and Kathy Keller's, they wrote it together. I've got Gary Thomas, I've got Emerson Eggerichs, I've got Michael Foster, I've got John Piper, I've got Wayne Grudem, I've got, probably 24 books I'm going to start working through to write on what is the advice for men and women, how do we understand masculinity and femininity. So there'll probably be some book reviews coming on that. There's definitely a lot of writing already happening on that. I've done a couple of articles on masculinity, femininity, and roles in the home, so check that out at jackwilkie.co or jackwilkie.com if that's easier for you. But yeah, be sure, I always forget to give this plug, make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. I'm going to do my book reviews and some other one-offs here. Most of my stuff is on Focus Press, but some of these will be here on my channel, the Jack Wilkie channel, I guess is what I'll call it. But that's all I've got for you this time. Again, if you have suggestions, especially in that vein of men and women, marriage, gender roles, masculinity, femininity, if you've seen any good sermons, if there's any podcasts or whatever, you want to send me something. I'm trying to evaluate what are people being taught and is it helpful and where do things stand on that. So if you've got something on that, be sure to send it my way, whether in the comments here, reach me on my site, whatever the case may be. That'd be more than appreciated. So thank you guys for watching. As always, be sure to check out my site at jackwilkie.com, and I'll talk to you on the next one.